So for specializations, this is probably going to be the quickest because there is obviously the least amount of options, and I feel like this is a little bit more defined, a little bit easier to categorize. So let's get through this, and we're first going to start off with the light specializations. Now, the cloaking device I'm going to put into A tier. I think that this is actually not that bad, and with thermal vision currently removed from the meta, it is definitely a lot stronger than people really lead on. And if you have a good positioning and good situational awareness, you can make very good use out of cloaking device. There's also some specializations like cloaking device that benefit really well with specific gadgets. So depending on you and your team's loadout, you can make more use out of this specialization. And when it comes to Dash, this is definitely an S tier pick. This is the best pick on the class currently. If we are to look at the pro scene, almost across the board, this is what every single pro uses. And on rare occasions, we will see stuff like Cloak or Grapple. But for the most part, Evasive Dash is the best pick. Next, we have Grappling Hook, and I think Grappling Hook goes into B tier. And at least when it comes to the pro scene specifically, this is not as common as cloaking device, but there are some people who use it, and specifically in other regions. But even from my studies, it seems like the regions like China and Korea have actually been shifting away from grappling hook into evasive dash. So that means evasive dash is definitely taking over in every single region in the current meta. But I still think grappling hook has a bit of a place, so it's really not that bad. Now this is where I want to put them now. I might shift them around as we start to compare them to other classes. But next we have Dematerializer. I'm going to put this in A tier. This used to be meta along with Cloak, and after some nerfs and changes to the game in general, it's sort of fallen out of its S tier pick. But Dematerializer is still really good, and I've seen some players who are fantastic with it. Now the nerf to it was pretty massive, I'm not going to lie. But because of how good it used to be, that big nerf didn't really send it all the way to the bottom. It still has some use cases, and the ability to drop cash out and open up holes just so quickly is honestly super slept on. Overall, a pretty solid pick. Next, we have the Guardian Turret. Now, after the buffs and stuff, I feel like this is actually not like a horrible like D tier pick. It actually isn't too bad, especially in the Korea region where they use it because other things get banned and they are simply trying to make use of what is still available. But it does combine pretty well with some of the meta picks like the Revolver, because the Revolver basically leaves people with about 2 or 4 HP, and the Guardian Turret, basically just one bullet is going to make a huge difference for that weapon. So with the right synergy, the Guardian Turret is actually not the worst pick here. Well, I mean, I guess it's the worst for the class. As we get to Healing Beam, we can put this in S tier. But here we are. The Healing Beam after the buff and after the Dematerializer nerf definitely took over in the meta. And almost across the board, this is what we see. The odd time we'll see Dematerializer picked up, but Healing Beam by far is the best pick in the pro scene. Next we have Charge and Slam. Now I feel like Heavy is going to be the tricky one that I might want to mess around with a little bit, and I might have to just see how things sort of look and compare to other things. But as it stands, I think that the Charge and Slam belongs in B tier. But the thing about it is that it kind of does counter some of the other picks, and it's pretty decent overall in the meta because of how much Grenade we see, and it's a really simple counter to Grenade. But the biggest thing is that Winch is kind of a big meta pick right now, so Winch is a pretty hard counter to Charge and Slam. Even if you are slamming out of the air, if they hit that Winch on you, it just instantly cancels it. So Charge and Slam is overall not too bad, and it has some logic for why you might want to bring it, but because of the current meta, it does get pretty hard countered, and the damage on it is a lot less than what it used to be. Another really important thing about Charge and Slam is that it's really important that you cancel your charge pretty early on. You get that initial 100 damage, and then you cancel it to follow up with whatever weapon you're using. So a lot of people that just stick with it and just keep charging and keep doing the 40 damage, you're actually making your DPS really bad. There's going to be some situations where it might make sense, like if you can push them into a wall, or if you know that that extra 40 damage is all it's going to take to finish them, then maybe it makes sense. But for the most part, you actually don't want to fully utilize this specialization. You only want to use little parts of it, and in some situations, you might just not want to touch it at all. But canceling it is a pretty big mechanic, and I think because of that, you don't really get a full utilization out of it. But overall, it's just not quite as impactful as some of the other things. Now, Goo Gun is an A tier pick. I know some people might be some people might be surprised by this, but the reality is that in the pro scene, this is actually a growing pick. A lot of people are actually picking this up, and the main thing is that they like trying to set up defenses with it. And it makes it extremely hard to steal or go for a force flip when you have to go through goo. Then you have to go through C4s and then pyro mines. And it's like all this stuff that people can just sit in a room and wait about like 20-30 seconds while the enemies deal with all of it. And of course people are like, well, you could just bring fire and deal with it. Yeah, that's the whole point, is that you still have to deal with it. You still have to figure out that it's there. Then you have to go and find stuff to deal with it. And then you have to sit and wait until it's all burned through. Then you have to go through their C4 and then their fire. And it's just such this long stall that you can kite forever. You can wait for that perfect opportunity to jump out and actually fight. But it is dragging on their steal by so much that it actually is extremely strong, especially in cash out. This is the perfect way to avoid third parties by making it nearly impossible to just instantly flip your cash out. It means that you get this really long stall. Highly recommend trying this out if you guys have not. The goo gun is a very complex specialization, potentially the hardest to kind of learn. So there is a lot to learn if you're going to be picking it up, but in the pro scene, people understand how to utilize this to its fullest, and we're definitely seeing a lot more of it. Next, we have Mesh Shield. Now this actually goes into C tier, and only because of the current meta. A lot of things just simply counter it. The Charge and Slam counters Mesh Shield, the Winch Claw counters Mesh Shield. The fact that we have so much DPS in the current meta, like people are just spraying down and just instantly melting people, the Mesh Shield just instantly gets burned out. You can't really juggle it as effectively anymore. So for the most part, by the time that you even reach these people, since they're all using these long-range weapons, your Mesh Shield's just going to be burned through. And then you're going to have to wait for it to reset before you do anything. And then once you get close and you want to fight, then you just get winched in and you just get deleted. So it's just not really good in the meta. I think the only way that you can make Mesh Shield in the current meta viable is by allowing it to counter winch. By just, if you have the Mesh Shield up, it blocks winch. Then we might see the winch, which is in S tier, fall from that grace. And maybe the winch will fall a little bit and Mesh Shield will raise a little bit. Like we could potentially see something like this if they decide to nerf and buff accordingly. But as it stands, the Mesh Shield I think is the worst on the class right now, especially in pro play. We don't even see it at all. I think on rare occasions, people might bring it out on like a specific map, a specific team comp, and they might be testing it. And for the most part, when we have seen it, it's not really had the best success. Even in Korea, there was a team that was using Mesh Shield and they just didn't qualify. They ended up losing to other teams and other team comps. So for that reason, the Mesh Shield, in my opinion, is the worst specialization. Potentially in the game, I think maybe Guardian Turret and Mesh are kind of on the same page, but I actually see more Guardian Turret than I see Mesh Shield in the pro scene. So take that as you will. Anyways, this is my tier list. If you guys enjoy, feel free to subscribe for more content. Check me out live on Twitch if you want to come chat. Check out the Finals University. There's going to be a link in the description. This is a Discord full of educational content, and it will be doing some workshops and potentially setting up some community games for people to meet each other and to learn and improve at the finals. So make sure to improve, and I will see you in the finals.